That's a big problem. That's bad. Now, they had an outage. They had a performance issue in December. They were down for nearly 8 hours because of performance degradation issues. Now, what's interesting about this is you see this number right here. They claim that they had, a flood of transactions, 400,000 transactions per second. And this forking led to excessive memory consumption, causing some nodes to go offline. So it's a pretty bad outage, really bad actually. And then, I don't know if you can say his name, but Thed Klein, I guess, said this same thing I've been saying. Wrong. Votes isn't transactions. Stop lying about your TPS. And then, and then you've got CryptoTex down here. Both these guys I think are big Elrond fans, but Solana's transactions are a lot larger, basically. So if you go look at their actual, so I'm going to close this. I think this might be crashing so Solana might be crashing my computer. I think this is what's actually causing my browser to run slow. Some plugin in here is not, my system's not happy with, I don't think. But this is Solana Beach. This is their Explorer, Blockchain Explorer, basically. And you can see here's the current transactions per second. But I want you to notice, now I haven't exactly studied this in depth to be 100% certain, but you see here, if you hover over a specific epoch and you see the transactions, I don't know if that's a block or an epoch, but notice the number of transactions that are indicated as votes. It says vote. I'm all messed up this morning. All right. Yeah, this is what's crashing my computer. There's something in this that Chrome does not like. All right. So you see the number of votes. Like this particular time period, it said 454,000 vote, 200 something votes, and then Serum was accounted for 35,000 transactions. The system counted for 18,000 SPL tokens. So actual real transactions were, let's see here, Serum, Stake, and then some memo. But this is like the vast majority of this is voting. And so what happens is the way that I'm gonna close this now because I think this was making my computer run slow. Yeah, it is. That was it. Solana was crashing. Look at that. Solana crashed yesterday, and Solana was crashing our live stream this morning. Man, they just can't stop themselves from crashing stuff. So this is not true. My suspicion, and when I went look back to the Blockchain Explorer, I could not see it ever actually processing anywhere near this real transactions. What I think happened was it was a flood of voting. I don't know what caused it. Probably some memory issues. So they require 128 gigs of RAM at minimum, and they prefer you run 256 gigabytes of RAM. It's a lot of RAM for a decentralized system. My guess is that they were running into some memory issues and probably caused a flood of voting in the system. It probably wasn't external transactions. I don't know. I haven't got to the bottom of it just yet. But my suspicion is that it was actually 90+% of this was just internal votes that are required to maintain the system and not real transactions. And that's what cratered the system is my guess. Now, there might have been a large amount of transactions that came in. Say from 10,000 to 20,000 that then tipped the scales. I don't know, but from what I can tell, the vast majority of whatever was going on when they had the outage started was actually just internal messaging necessary to run the system. And that's kind of another problem with the system is the way you have to, as a validator, you have to participate and you have to pay for these votes. So you're paying with Solana, so that's why they call them transactions. But you're paying to come to consensus, which is kind of silly. But you have to pay to run to run a validator node. It costs quite a bit. There's a thread about how much it costs that I tweeted a while back. But we won't get into it too much. I don't want to belabor the subject. But nonetheless, it was a really bad issue. And really the main chart that matters is the Sol BTC chart here. So is there an opportunity now? Now, the truth is it's going to cause a lot of negative press. Obviously, I'm out there. A lot of other people are out there being kind of negative towards Solana. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be dishonest and say it's not a project without merit. There's some technical innovation with it, right? So there's definitely some interesting things to keep an eye on. And this hopefully will cause a reset in their price, and hopefully, for people who haven't bought yet or bought in at all, it will probably cause a reset in their price. And unfortunately, if you bought in at the top, that's not good for you. But it might present some opportunities in the future, because they're probably going to have to take a fundamental look at the system and maybe fix a few things. And there might be some opportunity for trades in the future. But I'm just looking for this. We'll just see what happens with this downtrend that we've been putting in after the outage. I guess this actually started before the outage, really, this downtrend. And then the outage yesterday, was the outage actually just yesterday? Right, the 14th? We really didn't even sell off on it. So I don't know if we haven't had the sell off yet or what, but so I'm just watching this consolidation that we're putting in. Maybe we come into some support and break to the upside. But Solana BTC is a chart I'd be looking at. Now, I don't have a hodl bag on Solana. I just trade it. So for me, if it breaks out to the upside, I might put on a little trade. The purpose of it to be to stack some sats if it breaks out to the upside and we get a little bit of a move. But it could also break down here, and so I don't know what I'll do with that. I'm not really in the mood to be trying to short crypto at this phase. It's just a really dangerous proposition. But that, for some people, that may be the trade as a breakdown. So I'm seeing this big impulse here. This is where that last daily, the one daily red candle, and then a resumption up as an area to watch for breakdown. The problem is that the weekly, you're all the way back here. Really, this should come all the way back here, at some point, if it's going to sell off real hard. That's the USD chart. Yeah, same thing here with the BTC chart. So that might be your target, on the downside. But again, given where we're at with crypto, unless Bitcoin were to roll over, so if there's a broad market sell-off, say equity sell-off real bad, and Bitcoin just kind of follows the liquidity and tumbles, and so does all of crypto, then maybe looking to take a short if Solana were to break down might be the play. Otherwise, in this bullish environment with crypto that we're in, I might be looking at a little scalp on a breakout here. So basically, if I'm looking at the daily levels again on the USD chart here, for example, and I would take this trade on USD, I wouldn't take it versus the BTC pair. But if you got to bounce off of this support level, a breakout, retest, resumption, I mean, that would be maybe, the trade idea would be a stop loss here, entry here, and then look to take profit here and up here on a potential double top on it. That might be a long idea. A short idea would be obviously break down to this level, and then you could ride it all the way down to this weekly. So this weekly impulse that we had, if it breaks this little bit of support here, and this is kind of a range of 146 to 138. If it were to break that level to the downside, that's a pretty big move all the way back to 40 something. That's probably not what I would want to play, but that's just what I'm looking at. All right, let's take a look at comments. What indicator is that? Morning, guys. Salami. So I said my wife eats salads from a place called Salada, and that's what I said earlier. I called it Salada. All right. What are your thoughts about Link? May have bottomed out against ETH BTC, thinking about swapping ETH for Link. Yeah, I love Link. I think it's way undervalued. I've had for a long time. I've been keeping an eye on the charts, looking for good places to add. I don't know why this is not white, but yeah, I don't. This little bit of that's not going to be helpful too much, is it? Let's take a look at the Link BTC chart real fast. Yeah, so it's starting to break out here. It's wanting to kind of break out. And if I were to really take, and you can see this kind of a bit of a, we're consolidating here. The moves are being constricted here. Now, if I take this bottom trend line and clone it, I've done this before. I took it off the chart because the chart just got too busy. But there's some touches here to keep an eye on. And then up here, right? But yeah, so if we kind of continue this very gradually ascending channel versus Bitcoin, we eventually break out here. Might be a little bit of a play. You've got a lot of horizontal levels to work with. Let's take a look down here. But I do think Link, I mean, fundamentally, you're going to come into some resistance right here. I do think, yeah, that's exactly what it hit, that little wick right there. That's exactly where it touched. I do think it's very undervalued. I would like to add to my position on a breakout here, or at least take a trade entry on it, something. So I'll be keeping an eye on it. myself, but I do think it's undervalued. So, I wouldn't make Link. Link is not a project I would make like a major holding. Like I would never make it like a 20% plus type of thing, like a big bet type of play, just because it's still an ancillary project. It's still an Oracle, so it's a lot of potential, but it's not a core crypto project. So it's not going to give you direct exposure to like, if there's an NFT, type craze again, that creates a lot of bullishness. You're not going to get exposure to that. So you get exposure to all that through the Ethereum and other chains that run, that those type of things run on. So Cardano, Ethereum, Polkadot, Outrun, those are the big like projects that I think. And then Matic is the other one as a scaling solution. It's kind of its own. It's got its own side chain too, so it's kind of its own chain. And a lot of people have called out that Matic is do some fresh. So Matic's the other one I'd keep an eye on. I've got Elrond I've been talking about a lot lately, but it's run a lot, so you have to wait for it to cool off at this point. Maybe look at buying a support retest over here or something. But as far as ones that are ready to make a move, there's Matic, Link. They both look like they might be ready to make a bit of a move to the upside. So, but yeah, Link's definitely undervalued. Thoughts on Algo? Algorand's fine, and it started to break out here a little bit. Yeah, it's wanting to break out. I mean, Algorand is, I hate to say it, but they're very fast, transactions per second, but don't let that fool you. When you talk about scaling in any modern blockchain, none of it matters because unless you outscale, like that doesn't even matter. With the Lightning Network on Bitcoin, transaction scale doesn't matter anymore because the reality is we've got entire nations with El Salvador, running Lightning across the entire country, basically the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network's now got critical adoption that none of this stuff about transaction speed matters because if all you're trying to do is move value from one wallet to another wallet, there is no better way of doing it than with the well-known asset of Bitcoin and Satoshi's moving around the Lightning Network. It's wickedly fast, and it's basically free to move money across that network. So you're not going to beat the Lightning Network. And then when Taproot activates here in a few months and you get like the underlying privacy mechanisms on Bitcoin, that's going to kill the Zcashes and the Moneros. And then now it's not the same level of security as like what a Monero has with its totally ephemeral wallets, but with DLCs and on Taproot and with multi-sig, you can obfuscate and you can eventually hide. It's going to be harder. On-chain analysis is going to become a lot harder because you're going to be able to actually hide where coins actually end up and who they belong to and so forth. So we'll see how on-chain turns out. That's going to be an interesting thing when Taproot goes live. But there's some underlying privacy capabilities. So when you kind of layer in, and the Lightning Network is a little bit more private as well, because you can have private channels and things. So when you add in kind of the privacy, it obfuscates the need for any fast transactions. So back to Algorand, very fast, can move coins around. I think they're used for USDC moving around. But when you talk about speed, really we got to talk about smart contract execution speed is really what matters now. So you see what's like all the issue with, so Solana's issue, their crash they claim was related to real transactions coming in and crash their network though. But that's the most important thing though is smart contract execution speed, right? And so when you look at what is Ethereum doing, like these NFTs, that's all smart contract execution. So what we want now is we want to focus very much on how fast does a blockchain produce, or how fast can it process basically smart contract transactions, and how fast transactions per second and finality of transactions are those. And those are the metrics we should be paying attention to. And the truth is Algorand just isn't in the same ballpark as some of these newer technologies as far as the ability to process smart contracts as fast, right? So the leaders in that space are Avalanche. AVAX is definitely the leader. AVAX has by far the fastest smart contract that I know of anyway. Smart contract finality and processing. And then you've got Cardano with Hydra scaling will be pretty effective, and then with Elrond, and they're able to shard the ledger and also shard. They're able to break up smart contract state execution. So I think when you talk about, that's really the speed that matters now, not how fast can we move individual transactions or coins around. It's how fast can you process, and how many smart contract executions can you transactions per second can you do with full smart contracts. And Algorand is not at the same level of the other ones. So and like Zalika is not, and so forth and so on. So that's the numbers I pay a lot more attention to, and this is why for me, it's all about, if you're looking at that metric as a key metric now for trying to judge potential, you've got, like I said, Avalanche, Elrond, Cardano. Those are really kind of the main leaders in that space. All right. Data would kill. Yeah, I mean, it won't probably kill Monero. The other thing about Monero does have. You're right about that. Another thing about Monero is Monero has it's GPU and CPU resistant. It's ASIC resistant and GPU resistant. Sorry. So you really need a CPU to mine Monero, which is kind of a unique and cool thing about it. So you know how you have these GPU farms that run like Ethereum's proof of work network today. It's GPU resistant. So you really need to run this on a CPU. And it's definitely ASIC resistant. So ASICs are what, like Bitcoin. It's a pretty simple hashing algorithm that it uses. So you can build a specific chip to do this very, very fast for what Bitcoin does. And that's called an ASIC. And so, that's why ASIC miners took over the market. And really, that's kind of a little bit of an issue for Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, it's not at the end of the world. But it really helps scale up the hashing power of the network, that's for sure. And then you've got ASIC resistant algorithms, like what Ethereum runs, what Litecoin, and Litecoin and Monero are not. That's right, they have their script. There are ASICs for them. I guess there are ASIC miners for Ethereum now, but like Ravencoin RVN is pretty ASIC resistant, right? So you really have to run this with a GPU. That's why I brought it up a while back for a trade. Some of us got a good little trade on this, because as all the talk was heating up around, what the impact of ETH 2.0 is going to have on mining. I thought the GPU resistant coins were going to get some attention. This is one to watch. So as far as ASIC resistant, Ravencoin, and then Monero has even GPU resistance and has to be mined with the CPU. So those will continue to give them some interest in the market anyway. Miners will be interested in them. So good point on Monero. And Monero is far more, it's built from the ground up with privacy in mind. But yeah, Litecoin's got some privacy. Dash, Zcash, those projects that have some sort of privacy transactions built in, I just don't see any use for those anymore with the Lightning Network and with Taproot, honestly. So, again, the transactions per second, Lightning Network can scale to millions of transactions per second. So let's not focus on transactions per second anymore. Let's focus on smart contract execution and finality rates. Now, Bitcoin's just put in, by the way, a standard CTM signal. I may or may not have added on this, but a little bit of a breakout, retest, resumption right here. You see that 4-hour wick right there when that got taken out. I've been being more patient lately and waiting for the retest of it, and that's where I added this morning, right before I went live, by the way. Not financial advice. But if y'all remember, I put a post yesterday that I actually took 10% off right here just to be safe in case it rolled over, and then moved my stop loss for these entries I had into basically break even, but right above break even, but basically break even. And so I added back a little bit more, added 20% on this little move here. I do want to talk about at some point how I do my I don't have a sanitized spreadsheet available for today. Maybe I can do one real fast about how I do my leverage trading, how I calculate my risk, how I calculate position sizes, and how I ladder in. When I'm trying to build a Bitcoin leverage position, I'm trying to build what's larger than would be like a 1 or 2% trade risk, right? So I have to layer in, I have to take multiple entries over time and then let those ride, basically. So, this is 1, 2, 3 entries on that leverage position with a small trim there so that I could move stop losses up. Those are my 3 entries on that. But yeah, Bitcoin looks like looking pretty good. So let's flip over now. Let's look at comments. I saw .USD, thanks. Let's talk about Alan's thread and then I'll look at comments. All right. So this was on the 13th. Alan said, all right, so he didn't see it dropping. 38K was possible but unlikely. Trend reversal imminent to get back to 49K. Well, I think Alan's proven pretty right here. Since the 13th when he wrote that, it was down here. I said we'd talk about it yesterday, but you know, we'll just zip through it real fast because I think his point has been made now that we broke into the upside and we're definitely closer to 49,000 than we are to 38,000 at this time. So I think let's take a look at his comments though and see why he had that in mind. All right, first was that he brought up the MGRO 14, flipped red. So he's saying, okay, so there's some pressure, so there's some sell signals, so there's some potential downside. And this is his buy-sell oscillator. It dropped below, so it's kind of I think it's a sell signal for him or take profit signal. But he's showing the Bitcoin realized volume. This is kind of, using this can help us to dial in kind of our major support and resistance. This is just where the large liquidity, this is realized volume. This is where you'll have natural support and natural resistance as people try to take profit over here and are looking to buy back over here, right? And this is those volume profiles is where those orders came in. So this is that gap that we have here. You see a big part of the reason Alan said he thought 38,000 was kind of what we could get to because we were inside that big gap. So when we fell at this big kind of gap in volume here. So now our next resistance is 46.5, which we just got over, and now we're headed for 49,000. So look for a bit of resistance right at 49,000 based just on that metric. Now let's take a look at the chart and see how that lines up. Let me see. I don't have it on here. See this right here, 49. That's a bit high. Right there's 49,000. I've got a weekly right at 48.8. 48.8 is the level I would have. Right, that's the weekly. So this is where the weekly we had several weeks of large bullish impulse. Then our first red weekly, and then we resumed over here. So these two weekly, this bottom of this red candle, on top of that, and Heath, if you're on here, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Heath might actually prefer that level because that's where it tried to reverse, but then again it reversed again over here. This should, in theory, have been more support. And I don't know how it's definitely gonna act as resistance, that weekly close and open. I just don't know if that's a more important level to watch than this level, or this whole range is equally as important to watch. This is a question for Heath. I really just would focus on the range myself. I'd be focusing on, okay, what happens as we come into that little band there? Do we kind of consolidate and then maybe turn around for some consolidation underneath it and then break through? Would be my expectation. So keep an eye on that. But that's exactly where Alan has, you see that 48.8 basically to 49.3 is basically exactly where Alan has that gap over here. That's where we see the realized volume profile is the highest. Interestingly enough, that lines up to the chart very well. All right. Late started over, like smash. Thank you, Chris. BTC perpetuals future funding rate are neutral except Bybit. We can go look at that real fast. I'll pull up some Glassnode over here and look at the perpetuals future funding rate. This is gonna be really important for us to watch moving forward. I wasn't watching as much as I should have. I think I did not appreciate the influence of the futures market on Bitcoin as much as I should have. Did not think it but if you look at the overall volume of the futures market and the derivatives market, it is playing a significant role. So it's something we're going to have to watch a lot closer than I have been. But here's a live view of it on Glassnode. So here's our perpetuals futures funding rate, which is very good. So you see here, right before we had the big correction, September, when was our big correction? That was 3rd, is that right? The 3rd, and then we had a little bit 7th, 8th, 9th. We wiped out our futures. Let's see here. Bitcoin topped in the 7th. Yeah, 3rd. All right, so the futures market got pretty much overheated right through the third. If you look here, it was overheated right at the third, and then it started to cool off. But this was kind of an indicator that we had maybe a correction coming, because we had, it was up here around, so this is the funding futures rate, right? Perpetual funding rate. And so now it's back to more or less neutral, 0.005%. We'd like to see it right around 0.01%, but it went negative here after the sell-off. That's a really good buy signal when it kind of goes negative like that. But it was up here at 0.03. So I would say in the future, I'm going to have to keep an eye on it. Anytime it goes above 0.02, we're starting to get a little bit overheated. You see right here it flipped. So late August, we flipped to 0.02 and above from August 30th through September 3rd. Let's look at the price action on the chart to kind of see what we're doing there. August 30th. So right here, this is where this little uptick in price was largely driven by futures traders. So you can see that on the chart, especially this move right here. So they were kind of fighting actually against maybe the spot market a little bit. If we look at that, right? So it really started to tick up at the 30th, and then it had this big correction, so it wiped out all liquidity in the system. Another way of looking at this is open interest. Sorry for the... no, not open interest. I'm going to pull this other dashboard up on this other side over here. But back to Alan's view, I'll pull up the chart here in a second. All right, this is what he was talking about. So this is total liquidations. I'll go back to my dashboard to find what I'm looking for here. Core on chain derivatives, but longs are liquidated real heavily. So that's going to reset the market a little bit there. Perpetual funding rate. This is the chart I was looking for here. Something went wrong. Come on, Glassnode, work with me. All right. So this was the funding rate. It's another way of looking at the funding rate. You see we got all the way up to 0.03 here. A little bit high, a little bit overheated. Probably a signal that we should start to look to trim any leverage when we get that overheated. And then you see here it went negative. The perpetuals funding went negative. So on the 7th and 9th flipped from 0.03, kind of a little bit overheated, to negative. And now it's much healthier, just above, just below 0.01, so 0.005%. But it went negative here on the 9th. So maybe that was a bit of a buy signal. Let's look at the chart and see what happened on the 9th. So yeah, that's when it tried to break out actually on the 9th. So we still had a big down impulse through the 13th. And it's kind of what I'm just mentally trying to line up here is there any insights? Yeah, it didn't really, you see on this is the black line is the price line. I got to look at that. It would be an easier look at that. But yeah, you see it turned negative here as the price moved a little bit, and then we had some more downside. So yeah, it's a bit of a lagging. It seems like it's it'll give us some time I'm gonna keep an eye on this closely in the future. We see here again the perpetuals. We had this big spike on the 3rd, and then 4 days later we had the big correction, and then you had this. It went pretty negative on the 9th, and then 1, 2, 3. About 4 days later, it bottomed and started heading the other direction. So I don't know. I'm not going to make any trades or do, change my analysis based purely on the fact that there's a 4-day lag in this. But it's interesting to note that the funding rate got ahead of us. We had a little bit of a spike and then a big drop. The funding rate got negative. We had a little bit of consolidation and then a move to the upside. So something to definitely keep an eye on as we move forward on Bitcoin. All right, let's go back to... Yes, it's potential supply. Can you look over lower? Okay, so as far as I'm aware, Heath would place the supply line at the bottom of the green candle that reached the high. The bottom, so where I had it at first. Let's go back to weekly here. The bottom of the green candle that reached the high. So it would be placed right there. Right, pretty much where I had it. Now, I don't know if so that's the main area to watch then. 40 it looks like, let me zoom in a bit. 48.8. Is that correct, Heath? And yeah, Heath, yes, potential supply 48.8 would be the level you'd be watching, roughly 48.788, whatever this the bottom of this green candle after it retook. So what happened? Just while I wait for him to respond, I'll narrate this. A very large 5 weeks of green bullish, very large bullish impulse. 5 weeks of green weeklies. Our first red. This is where the bears tried to take over, and then the bulls regained control here. So at the bottom, the close of this red candle, and then the open of this green candle is going to provide. I believe this level is going to provide a lot of resistance as we come back into that level, but. So, wait for there was validation on that, but I think that's the level to watch. That's where I had the line originally, so I would hope that's the level to watch. All right, back to Alan's thread here. Let me close this out. Okay, let me close Checkmatey's chart here. Close this down. All right. So, same thing. Alan's noted, calling out some of the futures funding rate. Despite September being down month, traders are loading BTC with both call options. So here's the call put ratio, and we've got a max pain. It was at max pain. Let's go look at what the max pain is now on. Move this off screen so I don't overshare something on accident. All right. That's data mesh. Where's Deribit? Check Deribit's max pain. All right, so what I'm going to look at is options expiry tomorrow. Max pain's 47,000. So that's where the options traders are going to try to pin the market. 47,000. And then out here on the 24th, we're down to 43,000. So the market's kind of looking for a sell-off toward the end of the month, and then maybe some 46, 45,000 into October. So I don't go out too far because this typically just kind of hovers not too far away from where the market currently is. But you see was up to 50, 40, 50. Yeah, so it's not giving us any insight really. But the really close ones are what matters. This is where the market's going to try to pin. So the market's going to want to keep Bitcoin closer to 47, the futures market, but I mean the options market. But I don't know that it's going to be able to do that. We'll see. Back to comments. You're welcome, Kraj. I don't know how to say your name, Kraj. I'm glad that somebody's helping. No problem. Heath is a legend. Heath is awesome. Can you check Polkadot, please? Everybody's writing articles. This project is going to the moon in a few weeks. Yeah, Dot's a great project, but and it's just a matter of the hype cycle. I think you start to see those articles when there's price appreciation. Now Dot's been, I mean, I've had a hodl bag. It's one of my larger holdings. It's a really good interop project. So basically, the way Polkadot works is it's like this master sharded chain, right? So the main Polkadot operates this main sharded ledger, and then there's 128 what's called parachain slots, or basically shards of the main Polkadot ledger. And they all snap in, so these 128 projects snap in and have really good connectivity to the rest of the world and access. And they've got also a developer framework I think it's built on Rust, but they've got a really good SDK for project developers. If you want to build, say you want to build an application and you kind of need your own blockchain for whatever reason, so you're not going to go develop on Ethereum if you need your own blockchain, probably, unless you're going to build like a layer 2 of some type. But if there's some fundamental reason you need your own chain, but you don't want to spend the time and energy to engineer it and build entirely your own, Polkadot's got a full framework. You just snap into their framework and then start building what you want. So you don't have to worry about the underlying mechanisms of how the blockchain works. All you can start to do is build what it is that you're trying to build. And so I call it like the Etsy for developers. So I think it's a great project. It's kind of like Shopify / Etsy, right? So it's got huge potential for sure. As far as the chart goes, I mean, it's back to is resuming upwards. It's got a really strong impulse here. If I go look at a lot of these altcoins, it's really strongly up. Personally, I've got these longer term green lines. This was your entry somewhere over here. I'd be waiting for it to cool down and come back into support myself. You got resistance ahead. So we're at $36 roughly. We're going to have some overhead resistance here. What do I have? A red line right there. I don't know exactly. This is some old charting. I haven't charted Polkadot in a while, but yeah, you're going to come into some resistance, maybe closer to 48. It's going to be pretty stiff resistance as it tries to enter price discovery. It's, like I said, it's made a pretty big move here. It might keep trugging along. It did before. I mean, we were trading it pretty aggressively over here when it started its breakout. The problem is the season we're in. If you look at this versus Bitcoin, that's the chart I care about more. And then here would have been maybe the entry would have been back here. So if you get a throwback all the way to that level, it'd be a really nice place to maybe keep an eye on, or the top side of this level. Let me borrow one of these way too many Heath lines I've got on here. Let me just remove old drawings, clear this up. All right. Yeah, so Polkadot, I'd be waiting for it to come back to cool off a little bit and then consolidate here for a bit. Draw me a fresh breakout trend line. So you're probably going to get some consolidation in here, I would think, especially if Bitcoin makes a move. Bitcoin's dominant. We need to talk about Bitcoin dominance. It's going to break out probably, right? And then so the next opportunity would be over here when it breaks out to the upside, my guess. Now, let's look at Bitcoin dominance here. I meant to bring this up earlier. Thanks, Heath. Okay, perfect. Okay. So I have this descending wedge on it. Now this is actually a trend line I have rooted from way back over here. And you see it kind of, it hit that as support. Bitcoin dominance did on the way down. It went down below it, but the daily closes, it kept closing right on that area. And now it's looking to break out to the upside of this. Now I'm going to root this in the daily closing price as best I can. 1, 2, that touch. So I've got, I'll show you what I'm looking at. My eyes are looking at that green, top of that green candle, top of that red candle, top of that red candle. And then, yeah, you've got some confluence with that wick there and that wick there, but those two I wouldn't be overly thinking about. But now we've got this severe downtrend. So we broke down. We had a little bit of a slight ascending wedge. We broke down, consolidated right in this little range in the perfect breakdown. This is where this is where I was boneheaded and didn't get it. This is where I started trading alts on this breakdown here. So we had some alt trades there, but it started putting a bottom in right, maybe a double bottom here right at 40, right? So we've got a potential double bottom and a breakout of this very slight descending wedge potential pattern that we've got going on here is what I'm looking at. And so again, the double bottom would be we touched over here back in May, and then now we bottomed out here again in September. And I'm really looking for Bitcoin to maybe make a move back to the upside here. Now this was my original target, if y'all recall, on a move to the upside on Bitcoin dominance. We'll have to keep a really close eye on the 50 level. So this move, if we are focused on Bitcoin for this move upward, the 50 level might be a place to look at attacking and rotating to some alts as it comes into resistance, but being quick to get back into Bitcoin heavy if it does break back to the upside here, right? So we could try looking at, if it looks like it's going to roll over here as it comes into that, then maybe that's the place to add to some altcoins. So here's how the dynamic of this works, right? Just for everybody who doesn't know what Bitcoin dominance is. Bitcoin dominance is the percentage of market cap of all of crypto that Bitcoin alone is, right? So right now, all of the cryptocurrency landscape, Bitcoin's market cap is 41.5% of the total crypto market cap. And we're looking for Bitcoin to potentially make a move if it breaks out of this descending wedge all the way up to 50 or somewhere in that area, maybe 49, 50 would be our initial move target. What that means is that if you're heavily invested in altcoins, not financial advice, Van by the River, I didn't start with that, did I? I'm going to do that real fast before I forget about it. So none of this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my opinions and observations on the market. And if you end up taking my, advice blindly without doing your own research, you're going to end up losing all your money and living in a van down by the river. All right, so not financial advice, but if Bitcoin does break out to the upside here, and if I were personally invested heavily into altcoins, I would be looking to rotate into Bitcoin. largely, maybe taking some profit on my altcoins, however you want to look at that, and playing this move of Bitcoin to the upside. Now, I'm going to be really looking at the altcoin charts very closely as we come into this level for potential opportunities to take trades on alts. As Bitcoin consolidates here, this would mean that, so what's happening here is Bitcoin is gaining market dominance, gaining a larger percentage. That means all other coins are largely losing value versus Bitcoin. If we come into resistance here and roll over, that means that Bitcoin is losing value versus other coins. Or if the market is moving up together, this might simply be that Bitcoin is consolidating at some key price level, maybe 65,000, who knows. And altcoins are just going to have like a mini run, right? And altcoins are going to make a nice run. So maybe, you check out your Ethereum, Cardano, whatever charts. And if they make a big move, rotate a little bit into those, play this until we come back into support and or turn around. And if it ends up being that that's the top for the Bitcoin dominance, and then this is where alt season 2 starts, then you've got some nice early entries. Because there's a chance that this runs through October, November, and it actually just peaks out somewhere in this area for the Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes on to make a bull run, say to 100,000 or above potentially, this would be a level to look at for a potential top in that. This is really the area I'm targeting though. So be quick. For me, I'll probably look at some trades. I'll be quick to get back into Bitcoin if we were to break to the upside of this. And again, targeting this area. When we get to this shaded area, should we get there, I will be very aggressive about rotating Bitcoin into altcoins as the individual charts set up. And I'll be trying to be as selective as I can. Again, I'll be looking at my majors, you see the ones I track on here? These are the ones I'll be looking at predominantly. So it's Cardano, Polkadot, Ethereum, Chainlink, Matic, Steller, Litecoin. I need to move Elrond up there. It's going to be on the list. But right now, Elrond's market cap is a little bit too small, so it's not as liquid as these other ones. That's the only hesitation to have. I expect its market cap is going to rise and be more liquid and more available more places. It's now available on KuCoin. Another big reason I didn't have it in this list is it wasn't available on exchanges that I actively trade. Now it's available on KuCoin, so I can probably put it in this list. Okay, so those will be the main ones I'll be watching for trade setups when that rotation were to happen, if it were to happen that way. Okay. All right. Yep. So just this is how, this is my major barometer for where we're at in different phases of crypto bull or bear markets. And this also tells me where to focus my attention, right? I see a potential double bottom. I should have, in hindsight, as we broke down here, I should have been focused on trading altcoins versus Bitcoin. But I started doing that when we broke down this little pattern here, right? And now I've been taking profits on a lot of that stuff. As we've kind of started to put in a bottom here. Looks like we're trying to put in a bottom. If we were to bottom, break out, and resume back to the upside, then we definitely, not financial advice, might want to be, taking profits on alts and focused on Bitcoin because it's probably going to out appreciate other coins. Wondering if this is a good time to add to Elrond at the moment. Yeah, I'd wait for some consolidation. Elrond's gone from, let's look at the chart. Again, you look at that chart, Bitcoin's going to help you out because if Bitcoin breaks out to the upside, that means that the Bitcoin Elrond chart is going to probably reset a little bit and come back into some levels of support. So what I advise people to do when you want to add to a project like this, I personally, I don't know how to say this, I personally would have some Bitcoin set aside. I would buy Bitcoin. And I would hold on to my Bitcoin and I'd have it on an exchange where the coin I want to buy is available. This is what I do actively, right? And then I wait for it to come into support, and that's where I convert my Bitcoin into that altcoin. So I would just hold on to some Bitcoin myself if I was trying to add to Elrond, which I am. I'm looking to buy into some of these support levels, and I'm going to watch how price reacts coming into these support levels. And if I get some bounce, like this was, if it looked something like, let me find a good example here. Yeah, perfect. All right. So you see right here, we had this breakout, came back into this level. We got some consolidation. You could draw some nice consolidation pattern on that, right? And then a breakout, that's where I'd look to go ahead. Basically, I'm buying coming into support. I mean, I might go ahead and buy some just coming into that support, and then I would save a good chunk to buy on the breakout. And that's how I would, that's exactly what I did for buying my initial Elrond, right? So I bought, I think, a little bit on the breakout over here. I already had some Elrond, by the way, so I've had Elrond for like a year, but a very, very small amount. It's a much bigger position now. So I bought some of this breakout, bought some on this retest, bought some on this retest as well. And so that's what I did. Actually, I got fooled out here. I'm going to show you all this, right? So I bought, came into support. It looked like it was bouncing. I bought right there, and it broke down on me. Now, this is a hodl position. I wasn't super actively trading it. Had it kept breaking down, I probably would have trimmed some as we came into here and rolled over, but we just blasted through. So that was my third add, and I'm looking now for another place to add, and I will be looking at this level to see if it's going to do something similar. And I see, like this, it broke down on us. So you have to just keep a close eye on that. Right there, see those wicks right there when it broke down on you? But then it just faked out and went the other way, right? So this was, I think, the big, this was caused by the big sell-off. I probably didn't overthink it too, because this was caused by the big sell-off in Bitcoin and all the liquidity purge. I think I was probably focused on Bitcoin too. But I did make a buy there and didn't ever sell it. I just rode this out. This would have been my stop loss. If we got under here and it looked like it was resuming down, I would have started trimming a little bit of Elrond, waiting for the next resumption. But same thing here. You see the Bitcoin chart? You see how it's rolling over right now? It came to a top. Let's look at, right? It's in price discovery versus Bitcoin. So you can be a little more aggressive, I think, probably in price discovery. But I would definitely wait for it to come back to support. That's what I've been waiting on, is the support test right here. See what it does basically coming into touch the prior all-time high. And then I think it's going to line up. When something moves that much, it's going to line up pretty well with your Bitcoin and your fiat charts are going to look very, very similar. Yeah, same exact thing, right? So 245 retest might be a good place. Might be a good place to just keep an eye on. I definitely wouldn't buy, just FOMO buy in here. The other thing too, I like 12-hour entries. So you see, let's see this daily support. Sorry, I'm jumping around the chart a little bit. So there's some support right here on this flip. This is a Heath level. We just talked about this earlier, right? So bullish impulse, bears took over, bulls regained, and this is going to provide some support there, 260. So if you're being really aggressive and you really want an initial position, I mean, that's not the worst place to look at a small initial position, but I wouldn't go like all in. I would just add maybe a little bit there and look to add here. And what I would really do is now you see a little bit of market structure starting to form here. I would wait for this to kind of flesh out and give me some clear indication of when to buy. And if you look, here's my typical launch angle trend line. And you can see it's definitely broken down out of that. It's cooling off. So yeah, I would be patient. I'd give it some time. Maybe you get a bounce here. Maybe you get some consolidation in here. But it's not as bad. Definitely FOMOing in when it broke 300 was the wrong play, right? It had gone from 136 to 300. It's not likely to go blast through 300 and just keep on trucking. Some things do, like Solana did. So, I didn't expect it to blast. Like there's 100. Here's a good example of what I would not have expected. It came into some resistance right below 100, cooled off, and then blasted right through 100 and just kept on trucking. So that can happen. But it also is always kind of above this. I guess you did get maybe a potential fake out there, but you never got like real solid 4-hour closures. Right there you did. But this is where if you're really, really, really tuned into something, you're very actively trading it. So I would have maybe taken a trade on the breakout over here somewhere, an entry over here, if I was really wanting to trade it very actively. And I would have gotten out here, right? This would have caused me to get out. So this 4-hour close below, I'm going to show you all this. This is a good example. This is, I think, actually literally what my trade was. And I didn't get back in. So I took a trade on this consolidation here on this breakout. And I rode that. And I saw this consolidation here. So I drew my trend line based on, and maybe that was a mistake to draw it that aggressively. I should have maybe moved that out. But I think it was this price action right here that got me to draw this trend line, and then these it never closed below that trend line, so I kept watching that. And then it did close below it right there. So when I got this 4-hour close below, what I do is the very next retest, I'll take some off, and then usually I wait for the rollover, which I should have done, but I think I just went ahead and exited my position there entirely. Bit of a mistake too to kind of look at that. So this was a fake out move, right? So this faked out, 4-hour close below, come back up at the retest, and it didn't maybe actually roll back down is what caused me to get out. Let me look at that real fast on a lower time frame. But I like to analyze my mistakes, because it's a lot more beneficial than just talking about, oh, I made all this money on this thing. All right, yeah, so 4-hour close below. I think what caused me to get out was just the timing of this. I probably should have been more patient. I would have rode Solana trade a little bit longer. So, I mean, I got a small trade out of it from 75 to 110. But I could have pushed that trade much further. But this is where if you do get faked out, you know, you can re-enter when it regains momentum like this. So my next potential to re-enter was when it closed the 4-hour above that trend line, came back to test that trend line, a spot to potentially re-add. So I'd have got shaken out at 111. 110, wherever it was that I sold. I think I actually sold at 112, right? Came back into that. 112, 113. My potential to re-add was a 4-hour close above. The test of that trend line, could have re-entered a small position here and kept that on. What I would have done, though, I should have done is moved, seeing that resumed there, move this trend line as well. So, and then this would have been a hard one, though, honestly. I mean, I wasn't watching it that close. I did not know it was going to do this big move at the end here. So I was kind of getting nervous above 100, frankly, because it's not my favorite project. But it's that little top right there. I should have, in hindsight, moved my breakout trend line to these new touches when it resumed and closed back above this trend line. I should have adjusted my launch trend line here. And I should have, on that right there, this wick right here, I'm sorry, let me focus on this wick. On this consolidation here, when we retook that price level, retested it, that was my next entry right there on that retest of that wick high right there at 119.54. And then I'd have been able to ride that trade all the way. That wouldn't have gotten me out because that wasn't, it retook the trend line. I would have got out right over here at 178. So that would have been a nice trade from 119 to 178 in hindsight, had I been more on my game and watching this chart closer. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but I get that this is a kind of an example of where, you know, you get nervous around a key level like 100, thinking, okay, well, I got a nice pop to 130, and you know, it started to roll over. I'm like, yep, it's going to roll over and go back below 100. It never went back below 100, right? It never even touched 100. It just kept on trucking. So, in hindsight, you know, Elrond is kind of in price discovery mode. You know, looking at that same kind of analysis that I would have been faked out on in Solana, and this is a lot more convincing on the breakdown side, right? And so it's 1, 2, yeah, we've got multiple closures, retest, resumption back down. This is definitely a sign that. And this isn't, a lot of times this isn't telling us that it's going to reverse and just like collapse. This is telling us that it's going to probably consolidate, right? So the impulse is probably over, and now we're looking for the next pattern to watch, for the next breakout. And you can look to be aggressive and buy coming into support. The better thing would be is to wait for the pattern to develop. But the problem here on this chart specifically, same exact bit of analysis we did before, 4-hour close below, that means that we should start to trim right on our next opportunity. And if you're really nervous, you go ahead and just close some. But I always try my best to wait if I think it's going to bounce, and this one sure enough did bounce right into that, and then I sell right there. Just give myself a little extra as it comes into that resistance, and sure enough it rolled over, and right here was our confirmation that it is going to break down and not retake that trend line anytime soon, most likely. And this is not a certainty. None of this is a certainty. This is all just probabilities. We are just playing probabilities. The probability is that we are now going to at least touch this before we get a resumption. We're going to find that as some resistance. But probably, I think the probability is that we consolidate in that range. Now, that would be more so the case if Bitcoin wasn't looking like it is breaking out. since Bitcoin is breaking out, it's going to drag the USD price up. I was looking at the Bitcoin chart, right? The Outrun, yeah. So this is the chart that matters, the Outrun Bitcoin chart, right? Because or any of these charts versus Bitcoin, because with Bitcoin breaking to the upside, it's going to drag the USD valuations of all these projects up. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's the Bitcoin chart that really matters as to where you're getting. Are you gaining versus Bitcoin or losing? There's no point, frankly, in holding anything in crypto if you're not beating Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is outgaining you, then you're just doing it wrong. That's just the way I operate, right? If I've got an altcoin that's getting beat by Bitcoin, I'm just going to get out of the thing, get back into Bitcoin. Like, I'm not going to sit there and futz around with holding something that is not going to even beat the goalpost here, but the baseline, what's the word I'm looking for when it's the the measuring stick. All right, I hope that was helpful. Good time to add. So that was a really long answer to your question. I went off on a tangent about trading a little bit, but shouldn't you be at work? Yes, I should be. I need to wrap up this. Hey, Brandon, what's good? What's your thoughts on Ergo-Dex being important to Cardano in the future? Ergo-Dex, definitely one to watch. I think the reason in my last video I didn't highlight Ergo-Dex is it can you not buy the coin yet? Yeah, you can. Ergo 170. It's probably the market cap. Yeah, 550 million. So, and Ergo's its own chain. They're snapping in and building on top of Cardano too, right? It's its own DEX, and it's available for Bitcoin. I mean, they're integrating with Cardano right now, and yeah, I think the big thing is when you look at it, it's a $500 million market cap, 121 on the list. I've instead focused on ADAX and Sunday Swap because their market caps are just so much lower that should they start to get adoption, and they're built specifically for Cardano, I mean, that's a $48 million market cap on ADAX, right? So it's what is that, 1/10 roughly? And then Sunday Swap, I think you can't buy the token just yet on Sunday Swap even. But these are just where the potential really lie. If you're looking for small cap gems that could really explode, that's really why I focused on like ADAX and Sunday Swap right now over Ergo. But I mean, Ergo's definitely a legit project for sure. I had when you first asked that, I had another project that popped into my head. All right, so Brandon, I know this is out of your regular wheelhouse, but I'm looking at the Fed's balance sheet that goes anywhere from 19 trillion to 47 trillion. That literally sounds insane to me. What are your thoughts? I think the Fed's lost their mind, but I also think if the Fed's lost their mind, they know what they're doing and they have a purpose for that. So if the rest of us are going, these people are crazy, they can't keep this up, this is nuts, probably somebody somewhere has an agenda that's enabling the insanity that we see. So I don't want to get political and or conspiracy on you, but I would imagine there's some bigger plan at play. Now, whether it implodes in their face, I expect it to blow up in their face too. That's the other thing. I think, yeah, there's some master plan somebody has somewhere, and it's going to blow up in their face. That's my guess. So that's why I think they're crazy, because I think it's going to blow up in their face. But whatever. It's not conspiracy, it's speculation. Yardstick, thank you. All right, guys, I need to wrap up. Thank you all for your time today. I hope it was valuable. Kind of went on a little bit of a meandering tangent because I'm a little bit off because I didn't go live yesterday and I had to redo my stuff and my computer's crashing on me, and it's YouTube. Anytime I open YouTube, it's like running slower than snot. What is going on? My computer just started when I open a fresh YouTube window. All right, well, I'm just trying to find my Doge-wave here, and it just started. Between the Solana browser and YouTube, my computer is not happy with me at the moment. All right, I'm going to leave you guys in some chill wireless outro music. for my Doge-wave.